Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. I am so excited to share today's guest with you. He is an incredible medium. He has been featured on Entertainment Tonight, Us Weekly, Elle Magazine, and so much more. You can find him on Instagram and TikTok with over 750,000 combined followers, sharing his uplifting and empowering messages and just shining his light. His handle on the socials is Travis Warrior Unicorn, and his name is Travis Holp. So without further ado, I really just want to share this conversation with you. We had an amazing time chatting about things mystical and mediumship and his journey and so much more. So without further ado, welcome into the Speakeasy. Welcome in for another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. Today, our guest is medium Travis Holp. Travis is a celebrity-loved psychic medium and spiritual guide, known for his authentic and evidential messages from the spirit realm. He has a remarkable ability to deliver profound insights filled with hope, healing, and joy, resonating deeply with audiences worldwide. Travis's unique approach brings a fresh perspective to spiritual connection, garnering widespread acclaim for his sincerity and transformative impact. Help me welcome Travis Holp.
Oh,
Welcome to the
thank
show.
you. Thank you so much for having me, Joy. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I have to just kick off with a compliment. You, to me, when I came across you on social media, probably last summer or so,
hmm
I was just so drawn into the messages you shared, which is not always the
mm
case for me, but you just feel so authentically open and honest and just being I know it's kind of like a buzzword, but being like your authentic self,
hmm
which I just so admire about you.
Well, I appreciate that. Actually, I had my very first human design reading today, and my friend that did the reading told me that because of like my human design type, that authenticity is like what makes me magnetic.
Well, there
So
you go. That's great.
yeah,
Maybe
and
I'm
like,
psychic. No, I'm just
and you're right. So I
kidding.
appreciate that validation, and yeah, social media is such an interesting landscape because I think anyone can show up and present kind of whatever story they want. But I find it's
Yeah.
just more fun if we're just, being real and showing up as ourselves. So thank you for that.
I think you do an amazing job of it. I'm so excited to hear about your story. It's one of the things I am a
Yeah.
little nerdy researcher and I did a little research on you. And it's one of the things I
hmm
couldn't find a ton about your journey as a medium. I know you've
Yeah.
said that it's been with you more or less your whole life. Would you mind
Yeah.
sharing a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, when I was younger, like a lot of mediums, I could sense and feel spirit. And, my parents, uh, when I came out to them as a medium, they're like, that makes sense because you're always talking to somebody, but we didn't see anybody with you. So, like, they're like, a lot of things are kind of clicking. But, I didn't lean into mediumship. And in fact, when I started doing readings, I started with tarot, and I was very adamant about not doing mediumship. It actually like
Interesting.
kind of like was something that I was super resistant to. And so when I started doing readings for money. I have, I've always had like tarot decks around, and I've always done readings for friends. I've always been just very empathetic and can sense other people's emotions, all those great, beautiful, juicy, intuitive things, right? But when I started giving readings, it was on TikTok in 2020. I'd left like my corporate job in the beauty industry after like 17 years. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do yet. So I'm just going to read tarot on TikTok because I don't have an employer that is monitoring what I'm posting and that can tell me no. So I'm just going to do it.
That's
And
amazing.
so, yeah, it was great. And so I start giving readings, or I start doing videos with just quick little channeled messages based off of what cards popped up. And then I would have people reach out and they're like, hey, do you give readings? And I'm like, sure. And so,
Because at that point, you'd been really reading for like family and friends and things more
yeah,
privately.
family and friends, and, reading tarot. And I was like, I understand, I have a good understanding of tarot. And I've been, I've been in like management and leadership for 17 years. What could go wrong? And so,
Agreed.
So I started giving readings without, really knowing anything about energetic protection and cleansing and all of those things. So kids, listen,
Yeah.
don't do as I do as I say. So, but once I really kind of decided like, okay, I want to keep doing this, then I started reading every single book I could get on psychic work, and I found a mentor and, started studying. And mediumship for me was something that, I don't know, it just kind of started happening when I was with people reading cards for them. I'd be like, do you understand this, like, grandfather that's coming through, and he's giving me this name, and here's how he passed? And people would start like crying in the middle of, their tarot reading. And so I was like,
Yeah.
well, I guess we do this now. And that's just been my journey with spirit. It's like, I guess we do this. So I've studied I take classes through Arthur Finley.
Oh yeah,
And
AFC.
yeah,
I always
yeah,
call it lovingly the Hogwarts of mediumship. I
absolutely it
don't know if they
is.
like us to call it that, but that's what I
Yeah,
call it.
absolutely it is. And then some notable mediums that I really look up to. I've taken a bunch of their classes, and I think I've got almost every mediumship book known to man in my home somewhere. And so, for me, mediumship has just kind of become this thing that I have fallen in love with so
Yeah.
deeply. But it was something that I had to kind of allow myself to access and get out of my own way with,
Yeah.
because I say I didn't want to connect to people or connect to spirits in a mediumistic way. And that it wasn't necessarily that I didn't want to, is that I didn't know if I was worthy of that.
I think that's such an important thing to talk about just because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize our journeys were so similar. I came into it later in my life
Mm-hmm.
as well. I was available for it, but it just started,
Yeah.
like you said, just started happening. And I was like, oh, or what's, like, we're doing this now? Like, kind of like you said, where I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what is
Mm-hmm.
this? And then it came to me during Reiki sessions, and I was a massage therapist. And so
Yeah.
with clients I really trusted, I would be like, okay, like, I know this could be
Mm-hmm.
across the line, but like, I have to say this thing to you. And just like you said, they'd
Mm-hmm.
start crying and knew exactly what I was saying. And I just was like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
what is happening? So
Yeah.
I love that you sought out mentors. And I do think that's
Yeah.
the best path, because I think that's commonly misunderstood, is that we don't always understand, like, what am I doing? How am I doing
Mm-hmm.
this? What do I do with this? Am I
Yeah.
supposed to be doing this? Or in your words, am I worthy of doing this? Like, is this gift
Mm-hmm.
for me? How did you start to, like, unpack all that and navigate it?
I think that finding mentors was really big for me, and reading books on mediumship, and really talking to people who, like you, are very grounded and humble and are willing to kind of share their stories, right? And so whenever I would ask another medium, like, hey, I want to ask you questions about, how does this feel for you? And then of course, like, I'm getting readings too, and I'm in the readings, and
Yeah.
the psychics are like, you're a medium, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. And
I love it.
and so, it was a lot of it, like a lot of things in life, just hearing other people's stories and experiences made me feel less alone. It made me feel like I wasn't, like, losing my mind.
Yeah.
It gave me a lot of validation of, okay, here's why throughout my life I've experienced at times high levels of anxiety, or just
Yeah.
knowing things that I have no way of knowing, or, and so I say that and I make a very clear distinction. I started doing mediumship for money at a certain point, but I've always been connecting. I just
It's
at the
always been
time
part of
didn't,
you. Yeah.
yeah, I just didn't know it. And now I do. So it's been quite the journey, but I think the biggest turning point for me was me actually doing my own healing and taking care of the healer behind the services.
Yeah.
And I started doing readings for other people that weren't my friends or family in November of 2020. And earlier that year, I decided to get sober. I started meditating. I started, like, really taking therapy serious. I'd been in therapy for some time before that, but it was really just, can I show up to my therapy session, and how many times can I make my therapist laugh, and so really started diving into my own healing. And when I did that, I found myself being able to connect deeper and deeper and deeper to this ability. So
That's such an important point too. I'm so glad you're so openly sharing all this with us, because I feel like a couple things, like congratulations on your sobriety. That's a big deal
Thanks.
and a huge part of your journey. And for what it's worth, I'm so proud of you. But I feel like we do, one, have to continue to do personal development, because
Hmm.
it's through the emotion that these gifts work. And if we're,
Hmm.
kind of stuck in our own patterns or not focusing on what we need to focus on, the work's only going to go so far. The second
Hmm.
thing that I'm excited to talk to you about is it's your free will contribution. You said, like, I'm going to show up, sober, I'm going to do this personal development, I'm going to really see what I can, work on myself. And
Yeah.
it's kind of what I'm always trying to explain to people is like, we don't predict the future, because no one can. We can see your
Hmm.
potentials, like, yeah, you have the potential to be this amazing medium and leader, and but it was your free will contribution of saying, like,
Hmm.
I'm going to do the hard work and show up, that made that potential become your reality. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah. And for me, I've always been my energy is very much either like a heck yes or heck no kind of energy for me. And when I really listen to that, and trust me, I do not have this perfected. I am working on,
We're all a work in progress.
I'm committed to showing up for myself every single day. And sometimes I get it right, and sometimes it's just an opportunity to do better next time. But when I lean into that, like I did with mediumship and other things in my life, it has always served me, and it's always been just an amazing, amazing journey and ride. And so for me, when mediumship happened, it was really just like yeah, we're doing this, and this is what's happening, and we're just going to move forward with it and allow it to grow and allow it to develop.
And I love that you share about mentorship too, because I
Yeah.
do feel like that's another common
Hmm.
misconception, is that these
Hmm.
gifts either rise to the surface or we have them, and people think we automatically
Hmm.
know how to work in a very specifically evidential, giving, specific details kind of a way. And it's
Hmm.
not the case. And I think it's what puts a lot of gifted people off mediumship, because
Yeah.
for me anyway, when my first mentor was like, "You're psychic," I was like, "Oh, you're crazy, because you don't
Yes.
do that." Like, I don't know what you're
Yes.
talking about. But
Yes.
then when she explained to me what that meant, I was like, "Oh, I'm doing that all the time." Like, of
Uh-huh.
course I'm doing, like, yes, I'm definitely feeling everyone's emotions all the time. And
Yeah.
so it's such a, I don't know, I think it takes a level of humility to receive training, but also it's that
Hmm.
excitement and those like little carrots that we get.
Hmm. Well, and I think, even Olympic athletes have coaches.
Totally.
I think, and I think for me, mediumship, it's an ability like a lot of other things, just like singing is an ability, right? Like some people should go out and be professional singers, and some people just need to
Yeah.
sing in their car, and that's okay. Like, I think for me, it's really been, I want to show up and serve in the best way that I can, because we're dealing with people's emotions. We're dealing with, I mean, I've had readings done from when I was younger that I still remember, that I hang on to, right? So we're not only are we connecting to
Yeah.
people's loved ones, but we're leaving a lasting impression on people. And so, I'm a Virgo through and through, and my inner perfectionist needs to read all the books and do all the classes and do all the things, right? Or used to, at least. And one of the things I appreciate about mediumship is that it's allowed my inner perfectionist to just kind of take a back seat and just be more present with my own unfolding. And,
Yeah.
but if it were left up to me and my own devices, I wouldn't have gotten to that conclusion. Like, I needed a mentor to tell me it's okay to like misinterpret something. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to, learn different ways of receiving. So I think mentors are such a gift, because they help us feel seen, and they help us really truly understand that it's an evolving practice, mediumship is. So I think, a good mentor is worth their weight in gold.
Well, and I think to your point, it does kind of feed that, especially if we're someone who's driven or
Mhm.
Virgo-esque in our qualities. Mediumship is the ever unfolding gift. We never, I often talk about a mentor I had for a while, Mavis Patilla. She was in her 80s, and she would say, "I'm not done developing." And
Yeah.
like, how delicious is that too? Do you know what I mean?
So good. So good. Like I'm helping people, as mediums, we help people with their own spiritual development. But like it's so fun because I'm also developing still spiritually and I'm still
Totally.
learning. And it's kind of fun. And in a way, it takes the pressure off of like needing to be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no, I mean, as we know, there's no perfection, and it's always
Mm-mm.
just working. And even as we're working with the spirit world and with clients, it's like we're continuously working every inch of the way, and we have to
Yeah.
be so in the moment to be understanding what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about you, but it's funny when I'm receiving information and I'm used to receiving it a certain way and I'm with a client and then that information just suddenly just shifts and now we receive it a different way. I laugh about it now. I'm like, well, spirit's apparently putting me through training day today, so we're gonna we're gonna learn here on the job together, both of us. So, I've learned to just kind of laugh at the little bumps that pop up or the things that kind of throw you for a loop. Which I can honestly tell you that me 3 or 4 years ago would have freaked out about those things. So it's been such a fun
Yeah.
journey of just liberation and authenticity.
And I think it is one of those things too. We have to continue to, like, back to the personal development side. We continue to like look at ourselves, look at,
Hmm.
I think people think we just jump into this. Yeah, yes, we're excited, but like it's a
Yeah.
little scary to be doing all this on the job training as we
Yeah.
go, even when you've, taken all the courses and read all the books and are working
Hmm.
and all that. It's like it's so challenging, and we have to continue to explore, our resistance, our fears, our worthiness, as is a lot of the work that you do publicly too.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think sometimes people think like just because you're a spiritual teacher or you're a medium or you're a psychic that you magically have everything figured out. And
I
like,
wish.
babes, I don't. Like I like trust me. And I asked the universe, I'm like, listen, I'm out here doing service work. I'm out here doing the things. Can you like cut me a break today? Can I just be spoon fed the answer today, please? And it doesn't work that way. But I think that can be a common misconception sometimes is that, we all have it figured out and we certainly don't.
Exactly. I like
Yeah.
that one. I think I think it was on her show that she said it. Oprah says sometimes she's saying like, God, don't teach me anything today. Sometimes how we feel, I think, which is
So
so
true.
funny. And well, in your thirst for advanced education, I read about you that you're pursuing a PhD. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
so that program has been put on pause a little bit. I think that may have been like an older bio somewhere. I think that's in like my frequently asked questions page. I did
Maybe.
I did start a PhD program. I stopped at the bachelor's in metaphysics.
That's a
So
lot still. That's
yeah,
amazing.
it was fun. I mean, I have this really fun ability to like just take on all of these projects at once because I get so lit up. So the PhD, it's still a work in progress. I'm laughing. I'm like, oh, I've been writing up my master's thesis for like 2 years now, so that's great. Um,
Hey, time is a construct, we
yeah, yeah, but I did find University of Metaphysics, and I did it just to like explore and
Yeah,
have some fun and just kind of see where I could kind of uh take things. And so it's not off the table, but it's just on pause at the moment.
back burner a little bit. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's part of the beauty of this spiritual work too, is that people don't always realize we don't have to be only in one vein. We can have something that we're working with
Mm-hmm.
for a while that's educating us and expanding us, and then we can pivot to focus of like, now we're doing big demonstrations. Okay, now I'm
Yeah.
back to personal development. Now there's like a flex in this work that I think a lot of people don't realize is kind of happening behind the scenes all the time.
Hmm. Absolutely, there is. Absolutely. Because, like we were talking about earlier, the work is never done. We are
Yeah.
constantly expanding.
So with your TikTok personality, I know you from Instagram.
Hmm.
I'm not the biggest on TikTok. I'm trying to get better about exploring that platform.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a lot of the same stuff
Yeah.
on both platforms.
Yeah.
Do you draw inspiration for those that don't know, please
Mm-hmm.
go follow Travis. He he
Mm.
is Travis Warrior Unicorn, and I tell all my friends about you because I just love your posts. You bring so much light, and your soul just shines through in such a big way. Are you
Mm.
drawing inspiration for those little? It feels like a snippet of like an inspirational talk packed into like 60 seconds or less. That's what it always
Yeah.
feels like to me.
Yeah, I'm just, I started making those videos again, spirit's funny that way. I didn't have this intention of having a large social media following. It was not on the manifestation list. Other things were, but that wasn't. And I got on I started on TikTok, and I was like, you know what, let me just post a video with a message on it and just see what happens. And of course, those videos, they start taking off, and get all this amazing engagement, and all of these folks really resonating with the message. And then I converted that over to Instagram maybe about a year and a half ago. And because my content before spirituality was just like me, my life. I would like take my shirt off, like the typical like
Okay, now
thirst
I'm gonna deep
posts,
dive. That's it.
right? So it's like, so it
Going to
wasn't
find the good stuff.
right. It was just like my life. It wasn't anything like, spirituality connected. And then, once it started happening, and I all of these kind of followers came, and, people would comment and DM and stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, this is totally it. But those messages that I share, it's funny. I laugh. I'm like, I grew a reputation as a medium without actually posting spirit mediumship or evidential
Yeah.
mediumship, right? Because they're inspirational messages. And I'm aware that, channeled messages aren't necessarily aligned with mediumship, with connecting people to their loved ones,
Yeah, it's just a
although
different facet of the work.
right, just different. But it's been really fun. And so those messages, I'm usually, I'm channeling, I'm asking, what is something that me at the beginning of my spiritual journey needed to hear? What's something that maybe my nephews, because I intro with, if you don't believe in mediums, just consider me your gay uncle. And I do have two beautiful nephews. And I just think, what's something they might need to hear if they're working through things with like self-esteem or worth or connecting to who they are. And or just ask, what's the energy in the world right now? What's happening that
Yeah.
people need to hear? And so, and then I just kind of open up my energy and let her fly, and just whatever comes through, comes through. And I put captions on it and post it and call it a day.
I think that's so great. And it's I mean, your courage in just going with what spirit's giving you and doing it that way really does, I think, help to, in a storytelling way, open up that permission for other people to just say what inspired words that come to them, or if it
Yeah.
feels in alignment with who you are and with, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like positivity
Mm-hmm.
and empowerment, then put it out
Yeah.
there. Like, why not? Why not just give it a go like you
Yeah.
did?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really inspired me to post those messages, there's a mediumship training deck that was put out by John Holland and Lauren Rainbow.
Yeah.
And, in one of the, in their training deck, it's like these awesome cards you can look at and kind of like use them as a divination tool for just what you can work on as a medium. And one of the cards in there was channeled messages of wisdom. And so that's kind of what inspired it. And I look back at when I first started posting, I would see people like Tabitha Brown, who, if no one's familiar, she is this amazing woman of color who posts this wonderful inspirational content. She also posts a lot of like cooking and vegan things. And but I remember watching a video of hers, and it was like right before I started posting anything. It was during the pandemic. We're all at home, and she's like looking into the camera, and she's like, I know, baby, you're hurt, and they hurt you, and that's all right. And then she just like finishes it with, I love you. And I'm sitting there on my couch like crying at this stranger who I've never met. I don't know who she is, but she's really
I love
touched my
her. I
soul
know who
in
you're
some
talking
way.
about.
Yeah, and she's just like touched my soul in this like deep way. And so, I was like, well, I can do that. Like, I want to do that. And how can I incorporate in things that I use, like tarot or other tools to kind of, inspire those messages. So they started with tarot, and now it's just me channeling, and I don't use tools. I love tools, but I don't use them in my practice anymore for clients or videos. But yeah, so that's kind of how it all just kind of started. And, a couple years later, here we are having this conversation today.
It's amazing how synchronicity and the universe and spirit works.
Yeah.
One thing you mentioned is that you kind of came out of that mediumship broom closet, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me in my journey, and for lots of other mediums that I've met along the way, that tends to be a real scary
Mm-hmm.
pivot point for us. Will you
Yeah.
share a little bit about how that was for you, how you were received, what you said, even? Like, it's tough
Yeah.
to tell family and friends, like, now I'm a
It's,
medium.
I equate it to me coming out as a gay person. It's, it for me, and I understand why it's scary for people. It is
Yeah.
it is bearing your soul to someone and saying, here's who I am. And knowing that they're going to have perhaps some type of either resistance to it, or there's a potential for rejection.
Yeah.
And, you being brave enough just to go, here's what it is. And if you are down with it, amazing. If you're not, it's really going to hurt my feelings, but I have to be in this truth.
Yeah.
And, it was the same thing when I was coming out as a gay person. It was scary. It was terrifying. But it's funny because when I came out as a medium to my family, they were like, oh, yeah, we can see that. And I was like, okay, great, perfect. And then, and then they were like, yeah, come to think of it, your one grandmother used to carry crystals around all the time. And, your other one used to really love getting tarot readings. I'm like, awesome, amazing. Glad we're all having this experience together. But I understand people's hesitation or trepidation around coming out of the broom closet or whatever closet. I think we all can identify, maybe it's not specific to mediumship or being gay, but we can all identify in some way of sharing a piece of ourselves with someone and understanding that they may not be welcoming to it, but doing it anyway, because living in that truth is so much more important than what someone else thinks of you.
Such a good point. Was it your family that you started to like verbally open up to about it first, or friends, or what approach did you take?
Yeah, so the first folks I kind of came out to, so I didn't plan on coming out because my parents aren't on TikTok, and so I was like, oh, I'll just post these videos. And then you have a couple that hit over 1 million views. And then eventually you start getting like the text messages or the phone calls like, I didn't know you did readings. That's amazing. And then you're like, well, eventually my parents are going to find out about this eventually, And so I first told my friends, and they had never really encountered someone like me in their life that they knew of.
Yeah.
And so I say that they knew of because there's a lot of us out there. And, and so they at first were like, okay, like, sure. And then, after some time passed, they were like, okay, he's serious. Like, this is not like, he's serious. This is actually happening. Yeah, this is happening. And so, they were all apprehensive at first. And now I have to tell you, my friends, they come to every live event. They are so supportive. They like cheer me on. They're just so wonderful. And I've made new friends as well in the spiritual community. And my parents, I told them I was actually at Target, and I was on the phone with my mom, and I was like, Mom, I got to tell you something. And she goes, okay. And I was like, I'm a medium. And she goes, what does that mean? And I was like, it means I talk to dead people. And I was like, but they're not actually dead, but that's a whole nother debate for another day. I'm just going to keep this as simple as I possibly can for this conversation. She goes, well, nothing you do really surprises me anymore. So that's fine. And so, it was great. But but then I did have friends in my life who were like, they're like, that's demonic, or, you're going to hell. And, I grew up gay in Ohio, and I I came out at a very young age. And so I'm
Yeah.
kind of used to people just resorting to that. Well, you're going to hell if it's something that they're not really educated on or they're fearful of. So
Right.
that doesn't really bother me when people go there. I feel very fortunate that I learned that a long time ago, that has nothing to do with me and I don't need to own that. Um, but but again, it's like that. I would rather be out as a medium and help people and live into my purpose and
Yeah.
live in that truth than not do that.
Yeah. And I think it's such a good point because it's unfortunate that you've had to go through rejection here and there. But also, you make a great point that we don't have to take on board anything that someone says about
Nope.
us. It doesn't, just because someone says it or it's their paradigm or belief system doesn't mean it has to be true for you. And it
No.
doesn't make someone any less of a person or
Mm-mm.
any better or worse or whatever because of it. I'm glad your
Yeah.
family received you pretty well, though.
They do, and they're so funny. My mom is so funny. She's like, "Do you still do your little readings?" Like, she's really funny. Like, I don't think my mom really understands like what I
Yeah.
do or like the internet kind of success that I've had. And she sees things in like like Us Weekly and Entertainment Tonight, and she's like, "Well, how did that happen?" And I'm like, it's amazing though because I love that my family is just they don't treat me any different. It's still this I still get I still get the same kind of treatment, which is nice. I need that and I love that so much.
Well, because it's still who you are. And like you said,
Yeah.
it's always been a part of you. And maybe you didn't identify it earlier on as like, oh, I'm talking to these invisible people. Maybe it just came out
Yeah.
as you being a little woo woo or you liking,
Yeah.
a pretty rock here and there or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. So
Yeah.
are there things like that that you can recognize? I think you kind of alluded to earlier in
Hmm.
retrospect, where you're like, oh, especially if you had like a high powered career in the beauty industry, you must
Hmm.
realize, like, oh, I've been reading people in these meetings all along. That,
My whole life, like there's like been like so many moments where I'm like, oh, like my mom's uncle ran a graveyard. He ran a cemetery.
wow.
And I would go and play in the cemetery as a kid because it felt so welcoming to me.
I mean, they're
Like
beautiful park like settings.
they
So
are
that.
beautiful, but like just the energy of just, even though I know that's where the physical vessels are, something about the energy of that to me
Yeah.
always just felt so loving and so inviting. And, I look back at like movies I used to watch and like books that I would just like love to read. And,
Yeah.
and especially in the beauty industry, I started as a makeup artist and, you just end up receiving just something like someone's telling you their problems or their
Well, you're in their physical
to
space too. So you're like so
yeah
close in their auric field, essentially, is what's happening.
yeah. And so you just get these like little bits that you think they need and you share it and you're next thing you know they're crying, you're hugging it out, and so or if I had I was in leadership for a long time, and so it was always great. I could always tell when somebody wasn't being truthful with me or somebody was trying to hide something from me, and I would always find it and I'd know like right where to look, and I get these like little intuitive knowings of like
Yeah.
look here or look here. And so it's sprinkled all throughout my life, and it's fun to look back now and be like, oh yeah, that's what that was.
And I think it's such a great point too, because we all have, I know you believe this, I've heard you say it before, we
Hmm.
all have intuitive
Hmm.
ability.
Yep.
And it's just, I don't know, tell me your opinion, but for me, I feel like it's just about starting to pay attention to those nudges. Or I have a friend, the way she used to say it is when something hangs a little lower in the air, like if you're having a conversation and one line
Mm.
just sticks out to you, it's like just
Hmm.
kind of following that hunch or feeling or nudge. Is that how you would say that people should start kind of paying attention to it?
Yeah, and getting out of our head and into our physical body is so important. I think,
Yeah.
our head and our mind it never tells an accurate story, but your physical body, the way you feel, your gut, that's always telling you the truth. And I
That's
think
such a
that
good
we
point.
we live in this society that like now, and when you've got the head and the gut in alignment, oh my God, watch out. You are
Yeah.
just like all powerful, right? But like we live in a society that it keeps us in our head and it tells us to separate those two and that we have to listen to what our mind is telling with logic and reason. And I got to be
Yeah.
honest with you, I think that that sets a lot of people up, not just to only disregard their intuition, but separate themselves from their sense of worthiness. Like,
Yeah.
I got to tell you, like, if I think about myself, right, and I start analyzing myself, I can tell you 10 things that are wrong with me right off the bat. But if I ease into my knowing, if I ease into my body, I know I'm whole. I know I'm worthy. I know everything is exactly as it needs to be.
Yeah.
So, like, both of those things are existing, only one of them is true. Now, when I get those thoughts about myself in alignment with how I'm feeling, then, oh my God, watch out. I am just supercharged and you can't tell me nothing. But, but I think that's true for a lot of people. And I think our intuition, we feel it. It comes through our solar plexus. When we're in our bodies, when our nervous system is regulated, when we're calm and we're receiving the knowings, the nudges, listen to those. Listen to
Yeah.
those every single time. They're not going to steer you wrong. It's just when we start to get up here in our heads, it's a
Yeah.
dangerous neighborhood.
Do you have any tips or like recommendations for people who are listening to you and thinking like, okay, well, I want to be more my body, but like, how do I do
Mm-hmm.
that? How do I discern the difference between those? Way I say it is like the chatter in your mind
Mm-hmm.
versus that intuition in your body.
Yeah. So, breathing is always a great place to start. And it's in my opinion, I think sometimes it's the thing that gets overlooked the most.
Yeah.
There's power in our breath because if you think about it, you're breathing in life force energy, air.
Yeah.
And so if you're just breathing in and you're just focusing on your breath, feel it fill your belly, fill your lungs, and then breathe it out and just focus on that. You're going to drop from your head into your body so quickly. You're going to notice your heart rate start to slow. You're going to notice yourself feel more calm. That's one way. Another way, but being still doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah, that's true.
So you have to honor that, right? And so if you're somebody who maybe you need movement, maybe you just need to dance it out. Like maybe you just need to play your favorite song, put on some headphones, whatever, and just move your body
We
without.
call that a kitchen dance party over here.
Exactly. Or maybe it's yoga or stretching, whatever, right? I think the best in my opinion, I think the easiest place to start is breath, and then kind of playing with, what gets you into feeling your body or feeling like you're
Yeah.
quote unquote in your body.
That's a great way to think of it too. And then I guess the next layer is back into personal development of
Mm-hmm.
then it's exploring those emotions or
Mm-hmm.
the resistance and what's sometimes we resist being fully present and it's such an easy thing to just get on the phone or get on the computer and detach, right?
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I think that's always a good kind of indicator that it's time to maybe pull ourselves back into present moment or just, observe. Like, I notice when I get anxious, I like to fidget or clean or I've got to move things and not trying to fix it or judge it, just observe it. So I think that
Yeah.
once we have that awareness of what we do, when we're either feeling anxious or we're avoiding an emotion, then we can correct it, which then helps us to lean into our intuition. I always say, I tell my clients who want to focus more on listening to their intuition, I'm like, never ask your guides, the universe, yourself a question while your mind is like racing, like
Well, our
ever.
mind wants to fill in that blank space with
Of
whatever.
course. Yeah. Calm yourself down first and then ask the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing to think about too, just because it's the access is there, but it doesn't mean we know yet always how to do it immediately, or
Hmm.
it can be something someone's working on.
It's a process, and it's not a process that once you do it one time, you've got it perfected. It's like anything else. You just have to
Yeah.
keep committing to showing up and committing to your own awareness. And if you can do it, the more and more you do it, the easier and easier it gets. But it's like anything else, it just takes that consistent showing up.
Do you have any personal practices as a medium that
Mhm.
you do like regularly for yourself that help you right now?
Yeah, so I love And I've been seeing this like make the rounds on social media more, is sitting in the power, which I know you'll know because
Oh, I'm glad
you've
people are
yes,
talking about
like
that.
I love seeing sitting in the power like coming back, because for me, like sitting in the power, and for those listening that don't know, sitting in the power is a meditation technique that helps mediums connect to spirit energy or the energy of the universe, whatever word you want to put there.
Yeah.
But it also, what a lot of people don't realize is it helps clear your energy. It
Yeah.
offers you energetic protection and connection. And so essentially what it does is it helps you kind of clear your container so that way you can fill it with yummy, yummy universal energy and be in that space. So I love sitting in the power. You know, energetic showers are great. When I like hop in the shower and I just picture clearing away my energy, or when I'm washing my hands.
Yeah.
I'm in Washington State, and so we're getting back into like spring is kind of peeking around the corner. So I've been
So excited
able,
about it. I'm here for
uh, I've been able to go to the
it.
beach more, like
Oh,
just
that's
being,
nice.
oh, just going and sitting at the beach, just by the water, just does something to me that I can't explain. And then I've actually been incorporating in it in hot yoga regularly.
Mhm.
So I know you asked for like one thing and I'm giving you like
No, I
20,
love it.
but
I mean, I think we all have
it
lots of
but
things.
it depends, it just depends on what I feel like I need. But before clients, I always do a sitting in the power, and then I, just work with my guides and angels just on keeping my space as, uplifted and filled with light as possible. And that always serves me well.
That's wonderful. I learned sitting in the power from I mentored primarily under Andy Bing, and he teaches a whole separate course on that, which I
Hmm.
think a lot of mediums, and for myself too, I always thought it was more, oh, practice exercises and practice reading and all of that. And
Hmm.
really, the truth is, it's 90% of development happens in that sitting in the power, or sometimes called sitting in the presence
Hmm.
exercise, where you're just, um, our human tendency is to want to always be doing something. Nothing really always happening in that
Oh,
meditation. It's a lot of just stillness and expansion. And,
yeah.
sometimes things happen, but not always. And I think people are surprised by, I always say, like, it's not the sexy part of the work, but it's
Yeah.
so foundational and important.
So my friend who did my human design reading this morning, she actually shared with me, I will share this because I love the synchronicity of this conversation,
Yeah.
is that who's to say there isn't doing in the being?
Yeah.
And there really is a lot of doing that happens in the being, like sitting in the power, sitting in the presence. It's and it kind of goes back to the being in your body. It's an exercise that helps you be in your body and get out of your head.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot of power in sitting in the power for sure.
They're really okay. All you mediums and developing mediums out there, you heard it.
Yeah.
You heard
I
it
know
here.
it's
You've
like
heard it here many times, but I
you're
love that you're
you're
saying it again.
you're so right though, but here's the thing. It's like kind of like when someone goes to art school and they make the art students draw like the fruit bowl or the chair or the
Yeah.
things that's like they're like, I want to draw the really cool things, or I want to paint the really cool things. And like you have to have those basic foundational things in order
Yeah.
to be able to really fly and soar and make mediumship your own. Which I'm really grateful that, I'm grateful for the mentors that taught me a lot of those core foundational things, but also just
Yeah.
me as a human. Like when everything is kind of getting complicated in my world, I just go back to my breath, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, sometimes that's easier to remember than other times.
Totally, for sure.
But when everything is kind of like chaotic, I just go back to that kind of that basic, like just sit and breathe, just be, allow the universe to respond to you. Don't respond to what's all the things that are happening.
Yeah.
And not only has it just made me a better medium, it's also helped with my own mental health.
I think that's great and so important to remember that, we have so many things going on besides the unseen world. There's our day-to-day life and our physical health and our mental
Hmm.
health and all these other things that it's important to also attend to. So thank you for saying that. That's really important
Yeah.
to acknowledge.
Yeah.
I didn't tell you this when we hopped
Okay.
on, but
Okay.
when we do guests here on the pod, we do something called Spirit Speed Round towards the end.
Ooh,
And it's
okay.
Okay. It's four. I was hoping you were going to have that reaction. It's four easy, fun questions that I
Okay.
would love to hear your thoughts on. Is that
Okay.
okay?
I would
Okay,
love that. Let's
exciting.
do it.
Good. Okay, the first question is share one thing that really shocked you or was unexpected about your gifts as a medium.
That it would require me to do my own deep work. That
Yeah, I
in
think
order
that
for me to
shocks a
be
lot of us.
for me to be like a solid practitioner and not be rattled by what I hear or not take it on, like I have to do my own shadow work.
Yeah, that's a good point. Will you quickly just
Yeah.
explain? I feel like we talk about it a lot, but I don't think everyone
Mhm.
understands what shadow work is. Will you just give a little, like,
Yeah.
your definition of that?
My definition of shadow work is bringing light to the pieces of myself that have shame or guilt attached to them.
Oh, I love that. That would definitely be Brene Brown approved, I'm sure.
I love Brene.
Um, I do too. I was just listening to her podcast this morning. Um,
Oh, love Brene.
she's relaunched it. So
Good.
if you got to spend a day in the spirit world, you got the full
Hmm.
tour, you got to spend time with everyone you've ever known who's crossed over. It's almost
Hmm.
time for you to return to your human life, and your guide tells you you have 1 hour left and you could spend it with anyone who's on the other side. Who do you choose and why?
Does it have to be just one person?
No, there's no rules.
I would visit with my grandmothers. I both my grandfathers are here, but both of my grandmothers are in non-physical, and I would spend some time with them. And I would want to spend time with Jesus.
Yeah.
I had this like weird like religious trauma thing, and then now I don't have it. Now I say I have like the best relationship with Jesus I've ever had in my life, and but I would want to spend some time with him. I don't know. I just think it would be kind of fascinating.
I love that. I think that's such a cool answer. And I do think it's valid. A lot of us have religious trauma and fear from
Yeah,
man getting involved in spiritual things, really. I think is that's
yeah,
maybe what's happened.
yeah.
Even though we have very spiritual gifts, we
Mhm.
have very human lives. What's one quirky thing about you that people might be surprised to learn?
I just got back into playing game or a Nintendo. I bought a
I
Nintendo
love it.
Switch. And they have this new Super Mario game that is so
Oh my gosh, I
fun.
was gonna ask what's your jam, Super
Yes,
Mario?
I'm not like into like I have no problems with people that want to play like the gun games and the thing. I
Yeah,
that's just
whatever.
it's not my thing. I love like
Yeah,
Mario though because it's like so silly
I
and
love it.
like it's just so fun. So yeah, I love playing Super Mario. It's really fun.
I think that's a really cool quirk.
It's so fun.
Um, I would love to see you playing because I'm sure you're so animated and
my
expressive.
inner my inner child has just gone ham the past couple of weeks. Like it's
I
like I wake
love
up
it.
Saturday morning and I'm like bowl of cereal, video games, having
That's
the
so
best
great.
time.
Very nostalgic. Yeah, we get to have fun as adults too, and it's important
Yeah.
to give your inner child some release.
Yeah.
I love it. Will you leave us with a pearl of wisdom? What's one piece of advice you wish that you'd had early on in your understanding of your gifts?
Don't rush it. It's okay that sometimes we feel impatient or sometimes we just wish we would, progress faster or move along faster.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. It means that we're picking up on there is so much more. We're picking up on the energy that there is more. But just have fun where you're at because that's just it's a part of it. You have to there's so much expansion. A lot of expansion happens when we're in states of joy. That's where the
Yeah.
true expansion happens. So just have
That's
fun.
great advice. I love that.
Yeah.
You actually have a live event that's coming up just around the corner. I would love it if
Yeah.
you would. Of course, we'll put everything in the show notes so people can easily just link to it. But tell us.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll be doing a platform mediumship event on May 16th at the Blue Mouse Theater in Tacoma, Washington. So I'll be for those that have never been to an event like that. It's where a medium takes the stage and just I call it point and shoot. We just start pointing people, start giving readings and connecting their loved ones out in the spirit world. And so it's a really great event filled with a lot of just love, hope, and healing and joy. And what I really enjoy about these events is even if you don't get a reading personally, the energy of healing that is present is so big and powerful. And so I'm really excited that'll be my second event at that venue, and it's a venue that has such rich history. It's called the Blue Mouse Theater, if I didn't say that already. And it's the theater is the oldest playhouse theater in the state of Washington, and
Wow.
it's a gorgeous space. So I'm really excited to do that. The event is called Travis Holp Live. Nothing, pretty quick and simple and to the point of what
Easy
it
to
is.
find. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that can be found on my website as well at travisholp.com.
I love that you shared too about even if someone doesn't receive a personal communication from their own loved ones. I didn't used to
Mm-hmm.
understand until I went to my first demonstration
Yep.
how unique it is of an experience. And even if you're not
Mm-hmm.
receiving a reading, you can feel so many things that it's
Yeah.
shocking.
It is like I'm with you. I never understood until I went to my first live mediumship demonstration was John Edward.
Okay.
And I've been to two of his events, and I've been to a lot more since, but that was my first one. And you could not tell me that my grandmothers were not sitting right next to me that
Yeah.
entire time, even if he didn't connect with them. Just the energy the energetic portal that a medium is is such a beautiful thing, and to just be in that energy is just it's delightful.
Well, thank you so much for what you do, for your work in the world, for being who you are, and for being here with us today. And thank you for shining your light.
Thank you for having me, Joy.
It's been my honor. Well, what did you think of that conversation with the beautiful soul that is Travis Holp? How generous of him to really share about his journey and his process. I love the tips that he gave us, and I'm so excited for his event coming up in Washington, that live platform mediumship demonstration, group mediumship reading, whatever you'd like to call it. I will put all the info in the show notes, of course. Be sure to check out his social media platform. Travis Warrior Unicorn is his handle on Instagram and TikTok. Of course, he takes private bookings. And if you want to find out even more about him or learn how to book with him, I'll again put it in the show notes, but his website is travisholp.com. So I am so grateful to Travis for sharing his time and his energy and his beautiful soul with us. I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation and that you found it inspiring or enlightening in some way. I'm always grateful to have you here with us inside Spirit Speakeasy. Big hugs, lots of love. Bye for now.